Hello everyone. This lecture is the second lecture of the topic remote sensing for drought monitoring. In this lecture, we are going to see concepts about drought indices and how remote sensing can be in generally used for drought monitoring. Drought indicators. So drought indicators are nothing but the physical variables that we can observe and use it for defining or monitoring drought events. Example, we all know that precipitation is a major or the controlling variable for meteorological drought. So if we have like a data about precipitation, we will get to know whether precipitation is less or more than normal, which will give us an idea about drought conditions. So such physically measurable or estimated variables that can be helpful in monitoring drought conditions are known as drought indicators. Some of the commonly used drought indicators are precipitation, air temperature, stream flow in rivers, groundwater levels, and humidity, etc. So precipitation is a major indicator for monitoring meteorological drought. Air temperature and relative humidity of air, etc. are kind of good indicators for agricultural droughts. Stream flow in rivers, like we all know that stream flow is measured in a lot of gauging stations, especially in dams. Such water level in reservoirs, stream flow, etc. are very good indicators for hydrological droughts. And similarly, having like good information about groundwater levels in a region will give us information about hydrological drought or groundwater drought based on the classification we use, etc. So based on the drought events or based on the type of drought, there are several variables that we can observe that or estimate and can use to infer information about drought conditions. So these variables are drought indicators, and either a single variable or multiple variable taken together can be used to analyze drought events. Example, we can use only precipitation data for monitoring meteorological drought, or when there is like lack of precipitation over area, typically the area will become dry and the air temperature will slightly increase than when the area receives normal rainfall. So such feedbacks exist. So if we use precipitation and air temperature together, or if we use precipitation and say like groundwater level together, such multiple variables will provide information about different characteristics of drought, whether it is like only meteorological drought or the drought has progressed up to the state of hydrological. All this information we can derive. So any one variable or multiple variables taken together can be used to analyze drought events. But analysis of only these variables may not provide useful information about drought. That is, if we observe all these variables and just keep the data as it is, or if we analyze the data as it is, it may not provide enough information about drought events. Say for example, one agency is continuously collecting information about rainfall and soil moisture, and they were really interested in knowing about like monitoring drought events. So rainfall, lack of rainfall may lead to kind of meteorological drought, but soil moisture, lack of soil moisture can be kind of substituted by using irrigation water. So if they just observe all these variables, and soil moisture is not only dependent on rainfall, but it is also dependent on soil parameters, crop parameters, etc., etc. So in addition to drought, there are other physical controlling factors that controls these variables. That is, say for example, if it, as I mentioned, if we take soil moisture is not only dependent on rainfall or irrigation applied, but it is also dependent on soil parameters and crop parameters. So which will vary in a more heterogeneous way, like region to region, time to time, etc. So we need to have some what to say, numerical methods or some sort of like numerical conversion factors to convert these indicators into more useful information. Drought indices. So as I said before, mere observation and analysis of drought indicators may not provide useful information about drought, because rather than drought controlling factor, there may be other factors that control these variables. Hence, in order to get characteristics of droughts, we normally tend to convert these variables into a number which is known as a drought index. So drought index is nothing but a quantitative measure or a number that characterize drought levels by getting data from one or more than one drought indicators. Say I observe precipitation as a variable. If I use precipitation and define a drought index out of that, if I use some mathematical jugglery over it, convert it to a number which will inform me about drought condition over a region, that is known as a drought index. So drought index is nothing but taking one or more variables, drought variables or drought indicators, converting them into some form of like numerical values, some numbers, which will inform us about drought conditions. So these drought indices can be univariate or multivariate. That is, it can use only one variable or more than one drought variable or drought indicator. And typically these drought indices will signal the characteristics of droughts, such as how severe the drought is, duration of drought, basically like it will tell us like when we can declare onset of drought, when we can say okay drought has gone away, and what is the spatial extent of drought, how much region is affected, etc, etc. All these characteristics of drought events can be known from drought indices. In literature, more than 100 drought indices are available, and this number is still growing because people are like continuously deriving new drought indices based on different variables, based on different regions, etc, etc. And when you read different literatures, you may come across terms drought indicator being used to refer drought indices, so just be careful. So in our lecture, in our subject, drought indicators refer to physical variables which we can measure, and drought indices are some numerical values estimated using these drought indicators. A simple example for drought index, a very simple example I'll say now. So we have a region which has a record of rainfall observed over last 50 years. So what we can do from the 50 year of record, we can define what is a normal rainfall for a given time period for region. That is, say all the 50 year record I have taken like monthly average. What this is the mean monthly average of rainfall for January out of 50 years data. We will collect all the rainfall information for 50 years in January, average it out and say this is the mean monthly rainfall for January. Similarly, I do it for all the remaining 11 months. So for the entire 12 months, what I have is from the 50 years of data, I have a mean monthly record for all the months of rainfall. Say for one particular year, say I have data up to 2019, like that I have. Say in 2020, I have observed rainfall over the same region. What I will do for February month, that particular rainfall, I will compare it with the climatological normal. Say the normal variable or the normal value, if it is like say 40 millimeters or 50 millimeters per month for this particular month. However, if I had received only 20 millimeters, then I'll say it's a deficient rainfall. Or on the other hand, if I had received 60 millimeters, I will say it is slightly surplus rainfall. So this is a very good example for a drought index. What we call it as percent normal. So we define what is known as a normal rainfall, climatologically normal rainfall for the region, and then using the observed data, I compare this observed data with this climatological normal, and if it is say if the rainfall is less than the normal by certain level, I'll say okay, this is a drought. Say for government agencies, they want a particular threshold. Government agencies will say okay, if the rainfall is less than 70% of climatological normal, I declare drought. If the rainfall is less than 80% or 60% of climatological normal, I declare drought. Like that, each government or each region will have a threshold. So what they will do, if the rainfall goes below the normal by certain level, they will say this is drought. Or if the rainfall goes higher than by certain amount from the normal, they say this is a much surplus year. Say if it is more than If the rainfall lies between 90 to 100%, it's a normal year, or 90 to 105%, it's a normal year. If it is more than 105%, it is a surplus year. Like that, they will define. So this is a very simple example of a drought index. So climatologically defining a normal rainfall and then calculating percent of normal rainfall is a very simple but widely used drought index. Okay, as I said before, drought indices can be used to define drought characteristics. So how it can be done? Before doing that, first we will see certain definitions or certain information about or certain drought characteristics which we are really interested upon. The first one is drought initiation time or drought onset time. So drought onset time is nothing but the particular time period in which we declare the region is undergoing a drought. Okay, drought has started from the month of July 2019. Like that we will see, that is drought initiation time or drought onset time. Similarly, we can also define a drought termination time or a drought withdrawal time. That is when we declare the region is free from drought. And then drought duration. Difference in time between drought withdrawal and onset is the drought duration. Say the drought has onset in July 2019. It has withdrawn, the drought termination time is say February 2020. So that is 6 months in 2019 and 2 months in 2020, 8 months. So drought duration is 8 months. So that is drought duration. And then drought severity. Drought severity is nothing but kind of the cumulative value of the drought level. Maybe we'll see with example drought severity and drought intensity. Okay, first we will see how to use a drought index for this thing. Let's say we have some drought index X, that let it be some index. It can be based on rainfall, based on the groundwater, based on the multiple variables. Okay, so for different operational agencies, what they will do, they will calculate these drought indices continuously, and then they will define a threshold for it. Say next slides we are going to see what is an index known as what is SPI, standardized precipitation index. It will vary from -3 to +3. So generally SPI is a drought index which will vary from -3 to +3. So negative values indicating drought conditions, positive values indicating wet conditions. So government agencies may define, okay, -1 as a threshold for drought event. So what they will do, they will continuously estimate this SPI values. They will put a time series of it, like over a time, and then whenever that in the time series value, when it crosses the threshold, in our case -1, they will first say the onset of drought event. Say as I said in the example is July 2019, like that. And then this value may get worsened, like -1 may become -2, it may become -3, and then it may get more worse, then it may slowly come back to normal. So this is drought worsening phase. It is kind of like worsening, and here this is kind of becoming normal. Okay, and then so when it crosses again a threshold -1 to higher values towards 0, we say okay, drought has been declared withdrawn from the region. So this will define the duration. Then what is the drought severity? For that particular time duration, in our example 8 months, for that particular duration they will keep on adding this particular severity values. Say okay, first month of July the value was -1. For the value of like August, the values like again -1. Similarly October it became -2, like that they will do. So for each month or something they will have one value, they will keep on adding it, and the sum of what to say, the drought index value below the threshold, they will add everything and they will say this drought is this much severe. This is one definition of severity. On the other hand, some may say maximum value, or how maximum it went. Say if it is like -3, or sometimes very rarely it may even cross -3, they will say that maximum value as the severity, like that say. So there are multiple definitions, but in our case we will say the total sum of all the negative values observed as severity. Then what is intensity? Intensity is kind of an average severity, that is sum of severity, or generally severity, sum of DIs you can say, divided by duration. So if we divide, or if we calculate severity, that is if we calculate the sum of drought indices for the entire duration of drought and divided by the duration of drought, we get intensity. So intensity is kind of an average severity, whereas severity is nothing but the total accumulated value of drought event. So these two informations, or these two information will be used for characterizing how worse or how normal the condition or drought conditions over a region. So as I said before, there are multiple definitions of this term severity. Some may define it like the way that I have said just now, that is adding up everything up to the duration of drought. Some may take the maximum worst case scenario and say this drought is very severe, like that they will say. Or some may even use intensity and severity in an interchangeable manner. Okay, so we have seen drought onset time, drought withdrawal time, drought duration, drought severity, and drought intensity. In the graph given here, uh, drought event 1 is the one with the highest severity, because if you add all the negative values, it will have some sort of like high severity. Drought event 2 is highest duration, and drought event 3 is the highest intensity. That is severity divided by duration. So it's kind of an average one. Okay. So drought indices can be univariate or multivariate, as I said before, and in general multivariate indices are found to be better performing than univariate conditions. That is, rather than using only one variable, if we combine multiple variables and create a drought index and use it for drought monitoring, generally such multivariate indices are found to perform better in identifying drought characteristics. When developing such multivariate indices, we should be careful how much weight should I give for different variable. That is, say I want to combine precipitation, soil moisture, groundwater level, and create a new drought index. I just, whenever I combine three variables, and also these drought indices are kind of has a range between them, between which they will vary. So we have to give some sort of weights to these variables. Okay, for my region, which is kind of like a primarily rain-fed region, rainfall gets higher weightage. Say I'll give 50%. Soil moisture gets say 30%. Groundwater gets 20%. Like that, I have to give some weightages, and this weightages will differ based on the region, based on the application, etc. So we have to be really careful when we choose the weights or how we blend these variables together. There are several methods of blending these variables, not only based on weights, but we should be careful in choosing them. And once we define a drought index, it will be our responsibility to define thresholds for characterizing droughts with different severity levels. Um, say I use SPI. In the previous example, what I said, I defined a drought to be an onset of drought when the SPI value crosses -1 on the negative side for the first time. Similarly, when it crosses -1 on the towards 0, I call it as like a removal of drought. So that -1 is kind of like a threshold for defining a minimum drought event. But drought event is, when it starts, it will reach a worst state, and then it will become normal. And that worst state, for each different levels of severity, we have to define different levels. Okay, -1 is one level. I can define -2 as another level of severity. -2.5 as another level of severity. Like that, I can define, and government can have different mitigation plans when the drought reaches different severity levels. So we need to have multiple thresholds corresponding to multiple drought severity levels, and say, okay, drought has worsened from this state to this state. We have to give more relief measures to the people, or drought has become a little bit better from worst state, say -3 to -2. So this is like slightly becoming better. So we can start reducing the relief measures. Like that, government will decide. So we should define multiple threshold values for a drought index corresponding to different drought severity levels. Instead of using multiple variables to define a drought index, sometimes several drought indices themselves are combined together to form a drought index, which people generally call a composite drought index. So example for kind of like a composite drought index or a drought product is we call USDM, United States Drought Monitor, which is an operational product of drought indicator in US. What they will do is they will every week they will publish a map, and the map will contain these information, just D1, D2, D0, D0, D1, D2, D3, D4. Only this kind of information will be there in the map. D0 represents normal conditions, or sorry, D0 represents slightly drier conditions, not still drought. D1 is mild drought. D4 is extreme drought. If no information is provided over a region, then that particular region is normal. Like that, they will say normal, D0, D1, D2, D3, D4. So this particular USDM is kind of like a composite drought index. These numbers or these indicators are derived by using multiple drought variables and drought indices themselves. So this is kind of like some example for composite drought. This is like very rough example what I have said. In fact, USDM is not a drought index as such, it's a product. But there are like several other examples which combines more than one drought index itself to create a new drought index, which people call as composite drought index. So we will see one commonly used drought index, that is SPI, Standardized Precipitation Index. I just wanted to cover this because this is one of the most widely used and recommended drought index for monitoring meteorological drought conditions. It is recommended by World Meteorological Organization to be a consistent indicator to use for meteorological drought. Okay, so this is, as the name suggests, it's based on precipitation, standardized precipitation index. So what it is, very simple in concept. Collect the precipitation data over a region. Once we do it, what we have to do first, we have to fit this particular data to a probability distribution. We are not going to see how to fit this. I leave it to statistics course or some statistical hydrology courses for you to learn, or even like there are different materials available in the internet for you to learn. Just take some data, fit the data to a probability distribution. Then that particular data will have a characteristic distribution defined to it. Once we have a probability distribution, then again convert this probability distribution to a standard normal distribution with mean zero, that is standard normal distribution they will define. Okay, so what it will do, most widely used is say precipitation data. People will convert to kind of like what to say, Gumbel distribution. There are different distributions in hydrology. We can use, or even there are a lot of distributions. Convert this into any one distribution and then convert that particular distribution to standard normal. So what it will do, it will convert the normal rainfall for an event, normal rainfall for region as 0. That will become 0 because we are using a standard normal distribution. So normal conditions will be defined by 0. Any values on the positive side, we all know that in a standard normal distribution, most of the data, 99.99% of data lies between a standard deviation of -3 to +3. So typically SPI will range from -3 to +3. Most of the cases, very rarely it will exceed that on either side. Positive values indicate wetter conditions because 0 is normal mean value. Positive indicates wetter conditions. Negative SPI indicates drier conditions. Okay, so concept wise it is one of the most simple drought index but very powerful drought index too at the same time. So SPI can be estimated for a range of time frame varying from 1 month to 2 years. So what is this? Let us say I have kind of like a time series. Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Similarly, 2020, I have Feb, March, April, like that I have up to December. Okay. So what I will do, SPI can be estimated for different time periods. I can say SPI for January. I can say SPI for February, like that. That is known as monthly SPI. So for each month, if I define one particular SPI value, I call it as monthly SPI. Similarly, I can calculate 3 monthly SPI, that is Jan, Feb, March combined together. If I calculate SPI, I call 3 monthly. Similarly, I can use 6 monthly, yearly or annual, like that. SPI can be computed for range between 1 month to 2 years. Similarly, SPI can be estimated on a moving window time frame. Moving window time frame means, say I have to calculate a monthly SPI, okay, but this monthly SPI can be calculated and published every week. Say for example, let us assume each month has constant 4 weeks. So January, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. February, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. I observe rainfall in first week of January. I come from first week of January to first week of February. If I calculate rainfall based on this particular range, what I get, I will publish a monthly SPI on the first week of February. So this is one monthly SPI published on first week of February. Then if I calculate SPI based on rainfall observed in week 2 of January to week 2 of February and publish an SPI value, that is 1 month SPI published on second week of February. So like this. Similarly, if I use say April record, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Yeah, if I use April record, week 1 in January to week 1 in April, I will publish a 3-month SPI, Jan to Feb, Feb to March, March to April. I will publish a 3-month SPI calculated on first week of April. Similarly, if I use week 2 of January data and week 2 of April data and calculate 3-month SPI published during week 2 of April, like this. So SPI can be in general calculated for multiple time frames, that is whatever rainfall observed between first week of January to first week of April. If I use that particular total 3-month record and calculate SPI, I call it as a 3-month SPI. Similarly, if I use January first week to February first week and use that for calculating SPI, I call it 1-month SPI. So what is the time duration I am observing rainfall? Whether I am observing the rainfall over 1 month period or 3-month period, 6-month period, or even 1 year period, I can do. Okay. So SPI can be computed for multiple time periods on a moving window time frame. I can do it like similar to USDM, which publishes a map every week. I can do it every week, or I can do it every day also. January 1 to February 1, 1 month, 1-month SPI. January 2 to February 2, 1-month SPI. January 3 to February 3, 1-month SPI. Like this, I can do it on a every day also. But for statistical reasons, SPI is not advised to be computed for a time frame less than 1 month. So people will generally say it's better to compute SPI for 1 month as the minimum time frame. That is better statistically. Okay. Though recommended for meteorological droughts, SPI is also used to monitor agricultural or hydrological droughts. Studies have shown that 3-month SPI is correlated with agricultural drought, 6-month or 1-year SPI is correlated with hydrological drought, and so on. And also, SPI values depend a lot on length of precipitation record used. As I said, SPI involves some sort of statistical transformation, fitting a distribution to data. So if the length of the record changes, say I have 30 year of record, another guy has a 50 year of record, we both will get different distribution parameters, and both we will get different SPI values. So SPI values depend a lot on length of precipitation record use, and also on the probability distribution selected for fitting the data. I may use distribution 1, another person may use distribution 2, and so on. And drought can be declared when SPA falls below a threshold, say -1, or some may say like when it falls below 0, declare drought, and so on. So SPA is kind of a really useful and most commonly used drought indicator, and I strongly recommend you to study more about SPI. Okay, standardized or non-standardized drought index. So SPI is one of the very good example for a standardized drought index. Say its value will typically range between -3 to +3. Whether you compute it for entire India, or if you compute it for a small region in India, or if you compute it for a whole continent, its value will never change. -3 to +3, rarely it will cross that based on statistical distribution. But one more example what we have seen is percent of normal rainfall. Its value will change time to time, place to place, etc. Say a normal rainfall for the month of January defined for Chennai is totally different from normal rainfall defined for uh, say a city in near Western Ghats, such as kind of Mangalore, Suratkal, or it is totally different for like Ahmedabad in Gujarat, and so on. So some variables are standardized, or sorry, some indicate drought indices are standardized, some are not. So the advantage of standardization is it allows for spatio-temporal comparison of drought conditions. That is, say as a government agency or some operational drought monitoring agency, I want to compare how severe drought is over the country, or how severe drought is between last drought event and this drought event. Standardized drought indices will help. Say if the SPI is like -2, if the SPA value is -2 over like 5 different regions, then the people will say, okay, drought is of same severity level at all these regions. If it is like -3 at some parts, they will say, okay, drought has become very severe in that particular area. Or if I say, okay, in 2018 I got a drought where the peak value was -2, this time the peak value is -3, so this year drought event is worse than 2018 event. For this sort of spatio-temporal comparison can be done using standardized drought indices. However, standardization will not allow the planners to quantify the actual deficit of water. That is, if I say SPA is -2, and if a planner is calculating, okay, how much water should I bring from somewhere else to reduce the drought severity, this -2 number or -3 number will not be useful for the planner to calculate how much quantum of water is needed. They will say, okay, drought number is -2, that's it. The planner will not know how much water quantum to bring in. On the other hand, if we use a non-standardized drought index, say like percentage of normal rainfall, percentage of normal stream flow, some sort of variable we are using that is not standardized, I cannot compare place to place or time to time, because percentage normal rainfall, uh, as I said, for Chennai is different from Mangalore, is different from Ahmedabad, and it is different from place Cherrapunji. Everything is different. Similarly, it will vary for time. Percent normal in January is different. It's different in March, like that. But for a region, a planner can calculate how much water is needed. Say the percent normal rainfall in my region is now 50%. Then I can immediately say, for my region, I need this much millimeter of more rainfall to reduce this deficit. So people can say, okay, can we bring this much quantum of water from somewhere outside to bring some relief to the people. So for this sort of planning purposes, immediately for quantifying something, non-standardized variables are really helpful. On the other hand, standardized drought indices are helpful in spatio-temporal comparisons. Then finally we come to the topic of remote sensing for drought monitoring. So just as a glimpse, what you have observed from this slides is we observe some variables, convert those variables into drought indices, and using those drought indices we can monitor drought by defining different threshold levels. This is drought monitoring at the most simple and basic level. So how remote sensing can be used? On the starting point, from remote sensing we can observe most of these drought indicators, and from these drought indicators we can derive lot of drought indices. Example, precipitation we can observe from remote sensing, soil moisture we can observe, We can observe the surface temperature known as the land surface temperature. We can observe how much water is evapotranspirating. We can observe the terrestrial total water storage. All these kind of variables we can observe. From these variables, we can define drought indices which can be used to monitor drought. Apart from these, common vegetation indices such as NDVI are also used to infer vegetation conditions or which is indirectly related to drought conditions. Even simple indices like NDVI, which is remote sensing specific, can be used to monitor drought conditions. Okay. And after the improvement in satellite-based remote sensing technology, several new drought indices have been defined from remote sensing data itself. Example, vegetation condition index, which is based on NDVI. Say I have for a particular region, VCI at a time instant t is equal to NDVI at that particular time interval t minus NDVI mean for that particular time t divided by, this is like mean value, NDVI mean at time t, NDVI max at time t minus NDVI mean at time t. Say for example, I am calculating vegetation conditions for the month of July 2020. If I have like a long climatological, if I have say a satellite record of say past 10 years, I can calculate for July what is the minimum value of NDA observed over a pixel. Similarly, what is the maximum value of NDA observed over a pixel. I will have like a maximum and minimum value from the time series. So I can rescale this. Okay, NDVA observed in July 2020 minus minimum NDVA observed in July for this last 10 years divided by maximum value of NDVA in the last 10 years minus minimum value of NDVA in the last 10 years. That will give me vegetation condition index VCA for July month of 2020. This is very simple example I said. So similarly, there are plenty of examples available and which drought indices are developed purely from remote sensing datasets. What are the pros and cons of remote sensing for drought monitoring? The major advantages, as we all know, remote sensing satellite provide repeated and global coverage. New drought indicators that are traditionally not observed from ground observation. That is, as I said, NDVI is not observable from ground observations. NDVI was developed primarily from remote sensing dataset. So this sort of new indicators are developed. Multi-temporal observations. It provides observations over different time period. If I want monthly average NDVI, I will get it. If I want a weekly average NDVI, I will get it. If I want a seasonal NDVI, I will get it. It provides data at multiple temporal resolutions. These are the major advantages. On the other hand, the major disadvantages are uncertainty in remote sensing data and algorithms. Like say I want to calculate soil moisture from remote sensing. What I observe, passive microwave sensors, I observe brightness temperature. Converting this brightness temperature to soil moisture is not a direct task. It involves a lot of algorithms, parameters and everything. It will have its own uncertainties. It will have its own accuracy range. So this sort of remote sensing data has its own uncertainties in the data itself, that is in the observation itself, and also in the algorithms used. Second thing is short length of record. Satellite technology and satellite remote sensing has developed only in the last 1 decade or maybe 2 decades. So if I want to calculate SPI needs a very good SPI value. People generally recommend 50 years of data or bare minimum 30 years of data. Whereas satellite record may not go for that particular long. It may be, we may be having data only for 10 years or last 15 years. So the length of record is a major issue when we use satellite data for drought monitoring. And inter-sensor calibration issues. Say one particular satellite sensor may work for 10 years, 15 years max, something of that sort. MODIS is kind of like exceptions working for now 20 years. So some sensors work very long, some sensors work only for a very short duration of time period. See, if there is a change of sensor, say one sensor worked for 10 years, now I have switched to a new satellite and a new sensor and I want to continue the record, means based on the sensor characteristics, the value will change. That is, I want to use a time series of NDVI from 1980s or even like 1970s. I have Landsat record, AVHRR record, and recently from 2000 I have MODIS record and everything. If I want to combine AVHRR record from 1980s to MODIS record of 2010 and if I want to switch to VARS in 2020, that conversion is not straightforward. I cannot simply take one sensor out and plug in data from another sensor. The data from each sensor has its own limitation based on the spectral resolution, spatial resolution, the sensor used, that is the optical characteristics of the sensor used and everything. NDVI observed over the same region and same time, but two different sensors will have different values. It may be having different look angle, it may be having a different spectral bandwidth, it may be having different radiometric resolution and so on. So based on the sensor, it's not like a trivial task to just take data from one sensor and substitute in place of another. So this inter-sensor calibration issue is a major problem in using remote sensing data for drought monitoring when we want to create long time period of data record. So as a summary, in this lecture we have seen a basic intro to drought indices. We have seen what is a drought indicator, what is a drought index, how to use drought index typically for drought monitoring. We have seen little bit about SPI, and finally we have got an intro to remote sensing for drought monitoring. With this we end this lecture. Thank you very much.